Our top story, well, a rattled Pakistan has said that Islamabad's crackdown on terror is none of New Delhi's business. Pakistan's Information and Broadcasting Minister Fawad Chaudhry said that Pakistan was not cracking down on terror to satisfy India. Listen in.
आज मैं हैरान हो गया हूं जब मैंने देखा कि हिंदुस्तान के फॉरेन ऑफिस ने इसके ऊपर बयान जारी किया कि अभी हम इससे मुतमईन नहीं हैं। भाई हम आपको मुतमईन करने के लिए तो कुछ कर ही नहीं रहे हैं, आपका इससे कोई ताल्लुक ही नहीं है। हमने एक 2014 में नेशनल एक्शन प्लान बनाया था, उसमें हमने फैसला किया था, उस फैसले के तहत हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। हिंदुस्तान का ना इससे लेना है ना देना है। हमने अपने मुफाद के मुताबिक हम समझते हैं कि हमारा अपना मुफाद है कि जो वायलेंस की कैपेसिटी है वो सिर्फ रियासत के पास हो, वो किसी और के पास ना हो। हम उसको इंशाल्लाह इंश्योर करेंगे।
Well, this was in response to India's Foreign Ministry statement earlier that New Delhi was not content with Pakistan's anti-terror measures.
To be a Naya Pakistan with a Nayi Soch, it should demonstrate Naya action against terrorist groups and terror infrastructure on its soil and end cross-border terrorism in support of its claims.
And Pakistan has brazenly said that the very country that its homegrown terror groups have been targeting should not have any concerns regarding anti-terror operations. So let's tell Pakistan why its crackdown on terror is in fact India's business. Several terror outfits like the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Toiba, which operate in Pakistan, have repeatedly targeted India. Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed has claimed responsibility for the Pulwama attack, in which over 40 CRPF personnel were killed. It's also responsible for the 2001 Parliament attack and the Pathankot attack. While Pakistan has also given refuge to the 2611 mastermind Hafiz Saeed and allows the Lashkar-e-Toiba leader to spew hatred against India using public platforms. Hafiz Saeed's political party also contested the last Pakistani general elections. Hafiz Saeed's aide and top Lashkar-e-Toiba leader Zakir-ur-Rahman Lakhvi is another terrorist behind the 2611 attacks who receives state protection in Pakistan. India's most wanted terrorist, Dawood Ibrahim, who coordinated the 1993 Mumbai serial blast, owns homes in Karachi and Islamabad. Dawood has even been provided security by the Pakistani army. And of course, all of this also smacks of Pakistan's duality and its confused policy towards India and terror. Pakistan Prime Minister has said that the action against the terror groups was under its Naya Pakistan and its new thinking. But Fawad Chaudhry believes it's an old policy. And Sushant Sareen, strategic affairs expert, is now joining us live for the very latest on this. And Sushant, thanks very much for talking to us this evening. Now, your thoughts about this double speak from Pakistan on terror, like different ministers speaking in different voices, some of course pointing out that this is an old policy, while Imran Khan goes on record to say that this is Naya Pakistan with a new thinking.
It's correct. It's an old policy, but they've been playing fiddle with that policy ever since 2001-2, when the first time they imposed a ban on these organizations. Now, the problem why none of what somebody like Fawad Chaudhry says has any real value, or anybody else in Pakistan has any real value, because they've been speaking in different tongues. So you have the military spokesman and the so-called Prime Minister saying that we are taking this decision in our own interest. We will not take any pressure from anybody. And then you have the finance secretary and the information minister saying that there is enormous international pressure on us. We can face international sanctions, so we have to move against these groups. So clearly they're trying to deliver different messages and indulge in the kind of gymnastics, verbal gymnastics, which they always do. For them to say that it is none of India's concern, I think it's rather rich coming from them. Or even disingenuous, for a very simple reason, that every time Pakistan has acted against groups like the Lashkar-e-Taiba, oblique Jamaat-ud-Dawa, or the Jaish-e-Mohammed, or any of the other groups, has been because of some kind of massive tension with India. So the first time they did that was 2001-2. Then they did it after the 2008 Mumbai attacks, 2611. Then they did it after Pathankot, when they even filed a case against the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Then they did it again in 2017 when the FATF started, had put them on the grey list. And the reason why the FATF put them on the grey list was not for any other reason except for the complete impunity with which the Lashkar-e-Taiba,
Right.
the Jamaat-ul-Dawa was functioning in Pakistan. Now, in February, on 21st February, the FATF in fact has enlarged its mandate to include the Jaish-e-Mohammed and other groups as well. So clearly, Pakistan is caught in a bit of between a rock and a hard place on this one, and they're now trying to wriggle out, trying to reach out to their own public, say that this is not Indian pressure, this is not even international pressure, we are doing it, and this is precisely, and I must say this. This is precisely the stuff which every Pakistani ruler or anybody in a position of authority has said in all those 4 or 5 times in the past whenever they have made, this eyewash of an action
Right.
against these groups.
Right.
So nothing new in that.
So nothing new, it's just a reject policy, but Prime Minister Imran Khan is selling it as a new package, a new idea, but his ministers, of course, saying that it is truly, going back to 2014, as you're rightly pointing out. But having said that, every time that they act against terror, it's under duress. There's nothing else to it. The Financial Action Task Force is going to be meeting in May and will want Pakistan to prove that it's done something. And the UNSC is looking at the Masood Azhar issue. So do you think that, obviously, as Fawad Chaudhry is saying, that they are not concerned at all with what India thinks? They are only concerned about public perception here.
No, it's correct that they're concerned about the public perception back home, but they also have to be concerned about India because India is the affected party, and it is the kind of pressure which India has put in large part because of the kind of airstrikes and the kind of border tensions which we witnessed recently, that the shoe shifted onto the other foot, and now the Pakistanis are being pressured. The international community is clearly coming down very hard. And the surprising thing is that you are right, Pakistan always acts under duress. And which is why the surprise is that countries like the US and others, including the NATO countries, which have lost thousands of their soldiers in Pakistani-sponsored proxy wars in Afghanistan, haven't really pushed hard enough on Pakistan on this particular issue. It's only when things seem to be spiraling out of control with India, and there is this fear that this could enlarge into a larger conflict between India and Pakistan, that the world steps in and then starts pressurizing Pakistan to remove the reason for
Right.
the conflict in the first place. And
Right.
that is what is happening even now.
All right, just shifting focus slightly from what Fawad Chaudhry has said most recently to now what is happening and unfolding in Balakot itself, where journalists are now not being allowed to reach Jabba Top. At the most, they're being allowed in areas which were not touched by the Indian airstrikes, including the UN body that's been allowed in Balakot, but not at Jabba Top. Do you certainly believe that this is just lending more credence to the fact that they have so much to hide about India's airstrikes in Balakot?
Clearly, because if you remember, on the day these strikes happened, the Pakistanis had done some grandstanding and said that there's been no loss, there's been no damage whatsoever, that only some trees have been damaged, and that we are going to be taking an entire delegation of people, including foreign journalists, to this particular spot. 10 days later, 12 days later, nothing of the sort has happened. Journalists who on their own wanted to go and look at the place and not wait for a guided tour by the Pakistani military were not allowed entry. So clearly something is wrong, something they are trying to hide from the rest of the world. And I suspect what they're trying to hide is, what the Indian Air Force actually did out there, which is that use certain munitions to actually kill a whole lot of people. Now, how many people they managed to bump off is difficult to say because there's no way you can get an exact count. But clearly there has something which has happened which the Pakistanis want to hide from the rest of the world. There is no other reason, unless, of course, what they also want to hide is that this was indeed not some kind of a madrasa or any such thing, but was actually a terror training camp, and there would be telltale signs of that in that particular place. So either they want to hide that as well, or they want to hide the kind of damage which has been caused by the Indian airstrikes.
Well, absolutely. Sushant Sareen, thanks very much indeed for joining us with your thoughts. And clearly, the Pakistani side has much to hide and much to deny as well, as we continue to see from statements from Pakistan.